Good morning.
Good morning.
The gospel today has two different stories in it, and they kind of form a healing story sandwich, I like to call. First, Jairus comes and seeks Jesus out to heal his daughter. But on the way, Jesus is caught up in a large crowd, and the hemorrhaging woman touches his cloak and is healed. And after this encounter, Jesus finally gets to Jairus' house, but the daughter has already died, perhaps because he was delayed by the crowd. But then Jesus brings her back to life. These stories are both about desperate people. The woman and Jairus are both at the end of their ropes when they seek out Jesus. Jesus is kind of their last resort for healing. Now, Mark says that the woman had been suffering for 12 years and endured much from various doctors, but she never had gotten better. She had some mystery disease that nobody could cure, and that made her an outcast in society. And doctors back then were a great luxury. So we can imagine that maybe the woman had been a woman of means. Maybe she bankrupted herself, trying all different types of cures for her problem, but nothing worked. So she hears of Jesus, a healer and a teacher, and she decides to go for it. She takes a great risk going out into the crowd. Because of her bleeding, she is an unclean person. No one is supposed to touch her. She's an outcast, she's poor, and she's reviled by society. But she touches Jesus' cloak and is healed. But that's not the end of the story. This is where we can get the meaning behind the story. If the story was just about Jesus curing her illness, it would have stopped there. But the narrative continues. Jesus felt her touch, but he was in such a big crowd. He wants to know who touched him. So the disciples say, "What do you mean, who touched you?" Who hasn't touched you would be a more appropriate question today. The woman is already healed of her illness, so she could have just run away at that point, right? But she came forward in fear and trembling and told him the whole truth. Only after this exchange does Jesus declare her to be well. And he does say that she is cured of her disease, but he states that her faith has made her well, which can be looked at in a different way. Healing physically is not a permanent thing. We can assume that all the people Jesus healed in life eventually died of something. That's part of the human condition. Now, perhaps we can see past the healing of the specific disease into wellness, as in well-being, which involves more than just the body. It involves a person's whole self, body, mind, spirit. The woman is healed of her disease at a touch of a cloak, but she was not made well until she came face to face with Jesus. She bared her soul to Jesus and told him the whole truth, everything. She probably told him about how she had suffered for 12 years, she could never find a cure, how she'd become isolated from everyone, no one would go near her, and how she'd become desperate, so she finally came to him for help. And Jesus accepts this woman. He calls her daughter. She is adopted into Jesus' extended family of followers. Her societal status has been restored, and she's formed a lasting bond with Jesus, a wholeness of being that can last long after her physical body fails. Likewise, Jairus is another example of someone being made well. Of course, the daughter is the one who is technically sick in the story, but Jairus is the one who forges a relationship with Christ, like the woman did. Now, Jairus was a leader of a synagogue, which is nothing to sneeze at. He probably had a lot of wealth himself. He certainly had great power, but none of his power or influence could save his daughter. So he's in a panic. He sees Jesus, and the text says, fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly to come and heal his beloved child. And Jairus here shows great humility. He strips away the pretense of his high position and begs for help on his knees down in the dirt and the dust. He knows that he will lose his daughter, and he's going to do anything it takes. And when his daughter is brought back to life, Jairus becomes well because he becomes whole again. His wholeness doesn't come from the physical healing, but it is discovered in the love that he shows for his daughter. He loves her so much that he would do anything, even crawl on the ground to beg a troublesome healer fellow, Jesus, of course, to save her. So both Jairus and the woman come to Jesus when they're at their weakest moments, when their emotions are raw and they're in great pain. And they open themselves to Jesus, and he makes them whole. They admit that they need help, and they show their vulnerable sides. And this is not an easy thing, because we're taught in society not to ever show weakness, right? I often hear people say things like, be strong, suck it up, or the ever offensive, man up, woman up, I don't know. Toughen up. It's hard for us to admit sometimes that we need help, that we're weak. But we are. But admitting that you need that help is hard, but it is the first step towards a relationship with Jesus. Jairus and the woman bare their souls to him. They're vulnerable, and they receive his love. They receive the wholeness that a relationship with Jesus can give. They only know Christ because he knows them, their true selves. When Jairus begs for help, he isn't Jairus the rich and powerful synagogue leader. He's Jairus, the dad, who'll do anything for his daughter. When the woman tells Jesus the whole truth, she isn't the bleeding outcast woman who lost all her money. She's also a daughter in pain who needs healing. And Jesus doesn't care about social status or how much wealth someone has or what gender they are or anything like that. He heals these people because they need it and they believe. To have a true relationship with Jesus and in life in general, to truly know someone well, you have to let your guard down a little bit, right? We need to let people get past our defenses and our pretenses, and then we can have a deeper and more meaningful relationship. It's the same with God. God accepts us as we are, and we come to Jesus as we are, seeking out help. We need to open ourselves up to his healing powers without those boundaries or those fronts that we put up, those societal categories we like to put people in. We must do this in order to truly know God. Because with Christ we can be ourselves, and we can become holy and truly well, body, mind, and spirit. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.